So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the second tabernacle services, where we find the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzaielic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yeshayahu the prophet, we find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Hamashiach laid waste for many centuries. As we read it in Yeshayahu the prophet, it's extremely important the understanding of Leviticus, or then Vaikra, the 23rd chapter, regarding the holy feasts or the Moadim, and also the time of the restoration period, regarding then tabernacling, and also the building of the third temple. And there are at least the layer of tabernacling, the layer of the military, and the layer of the trade. Now then, in our country today, there were many kinds of legalized raids that were conducted. Obviously those were legal in whatsoever term is used, liking it or not. There were many people in this country that were not legals, and they were detained. And for the most part, this truly is legal. It's a legal situation. However, there is another point that should be evaluated along with this action of the special police. There is the situation regarding with the taxes. Now, the non-legal people, obviously they cannot pay taxes because they are not registered. And a lot of these people are paid cash, and they simply cannot pay any taxes because they cannot reveal where they are at. Now then, as a responsible country that we used to be, a great portion of the trouble was created by the government itself because of a lack of enforcement regarding the payment of taxes. Now then, it is notorious the number of owners of companies trying to get around the obligations of taxes. Our own president was, for a very long time, a tax evader, and he finds any kind of gaps in the system not to pay any taxes. Now he says, in his opinion, it's legal, but is similar a situation with security. When the security system is implemented, only the scoundrel goes around trying to find faults in the system. So somewhere along the lines, when a person is set with certain rules of security, only scoundrels are going over there and trying to find a way out of it, because it's related with a character. Now a person can find fault, but the content of the understanding is there are certain regulations, they should not be broken. And our president has found any kind of ways of not paying taxes. So then, when this truly is translated of people being non-legals, what about those people that never paid taxes in their entire lives, though they are legal citizens? It's truly hard of finding or delineating a line of proper thinking regarding, what persons are truly at fault. And most of these was generated by our own government. So then, as being a fair country, it's extremely important, prior of our government tackling the problem with the non-legals, because they are not paying taxes anyway. And since the government cannot charge them taxes, why is it then the government not tackling the situation of legal people working and not paying taxes? Now, they are obviously doing, a great job going around finding the non-legals and detain them and taking the precaution of making sure these people then are not taking the jobs from the legal people. But the government has a great shortage of taxes. So as important as it is catching those people without documentation, so as important then making sure legal citizens are paying their share of taxes. We tried finding ways of going around of not paying taxes. So a long time ago there was a situation of the flat tax and so on and so forth, but a lot of talk is given and not much action. So then, another problem is related with the Muslims. Their culture is very important also. They are from the lineage of Ishmael. They have a link with Ibrahim. And also they deserve respect once this country is giving them a documentation, either a visa or any kind of a document with the United States seal and the proper government department that gave the document. Our government cannot go back on their word. Now, if there is investigations and they detect a certain problem that becomes a threat to the security of our country, if they have the documentation and that certain amount of people are a danger, then understandably they can take on another action and make the proper adjustments, but only from out of the blue because of a rash decision. Then a lot of people, they are decent and they have made plans previously, and there is a stamp of a legal document, and then the government goes back and in its word. It doesn't sound very sound. So then there were great news, because there is a new German government that was elected and taking on next month a great new democratic German government. And obviously they want to invest, and Democrats are more investing people than Republicans. The Republicans, they mostly retain the money and they try to control. But the Democrats, they are more liberal in terms of investments, and so it takes a bit of balance from the situation. But these are great news, because at least the European Union, they are going to be visiting in Malta this month, and later on there is the 9th reunion of the BRICS, system, and then with the democratic German government, then Europe can restructure itself, and then German investments in many German colonies around the world, including South America. It's very important. So there are improvements, but they must have steps of formation. And thus far, our country unfortunately has made many harsh decisions and ended up backfiring on the government because they simply went back on their word. Now those scoundrels that made those stupid decisions unconstitutional, they must go to court. And they must explain why they did such action. And where are the military documents stating that they investigated and they have come up with some sort of a document? Most often the government, makes up their own documents, being legal or not, true or not. Most of the time they get around it. But it shows very dangerous flaws in the starting of this government. Many people from other countries, third world countries, when they study the language, the English language, they understand the culture, they start to study the history. And there are certain ways that should be driven, certain actions, departments, government departments. And then when they begin to do things that were not consistent, not because they want to be a government that is injecting surprises in their ways of security. No, they are truly being scoundrels. Because they are retaining the trust of these people that they gave the government, they paid for it, and then for no reason the government goes back and on their word. It's not consistent with the ways of this country. Now, if this government gives documentation, being Muslims or Islamic people, whosoever are, groups with lots of people, or whosoever they are, this particular government that is very consistent, should honor whatsoever they put out there. So then, should the citizens be in line with the government? Absolutely. Should they pay their taxes? That's a situation that our own president wasn't a very exemplary person. Now he tries to run the government as he runs his own companies. And most of the time, a lot of customers of his complain because he does not pay for them. Now, people should grant, obviously, some flexibility. But when it comes of targeting certain types of cultures for no reason, that's very dangerous, because then also endangers Israel, the country that our nation is most often linked up with. And unknowingly, Israel is in a position of being in the midst of the Muslim world. So it's kind of a strange line of thinking. It quite doesn't make sense. But let's hope positively, thinking of the months to come and lots of changes around the world, in European arena is also changing, a new German government, and then France is becoming more influential. Let's hope these great changes can help us line up what's going on in the West. And at least Mexico won't pay as much regarding this huge fence that they are building over there. So that's a positive situation. Now the price of it wasn't released yet, but at least there are some positives that is coming out of it. So then, regarding tabernacling, it's very important, the involvement of many nations. Regarding also the line of trade, and the United States has lined up its government with one China policy. So U.S. has recognized the ideals and objectives of China. Now comes the European side of it, in the TPP, the United States went out of it. So a lot of countries that were being led by U.S., they are simply floating around. So then, if our country wants to organize its own home, they should at least making sure each citizen is paying his or her portion of taxes without trying to find ways out of it. So then this increases the trustability of our country. Let's try not to pick a fight with the Muslims, because then greatly makes it harder for Israel to deal with its own problems. But then there is another factor with it. The payment of taxes during this time of the restoration period brings a new section of the virtual decentralized monetary systems. So then the rationale is, if a legal system is faulty regarding a centralized one type of money, USD, and they cannot pay their own taxes, and then when it comes to decentralized virtual money, then what can a person say? So the next time I'm going to evaluate more of these, based from then the New Testament viewpoint of taxation. What has the Savior said regarding taxation? So then please stay tuned, much more coming up.